Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
And Tane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Kia ora, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Baskets of Knowledge. It's been a while since we've had a live session, probably because I was away. I got COVID, and nobody wants to hear me when I have COVID, and I think it was also a good break. But hopefully you've enjoyed the little short episodes that Tane and myself have posted. Tane, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. And tell me, in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks that we haven't had a podcast, what have you learned?
I think I've learned a few things, but one thing I've been reflecting on lately is how crucial time management actually is. You know, I've got less papers this week this semester, I should say. And so with that, you know, it gives me time to do a lot of extracurricular things. But I'm also finding that I'm actually struggling with trying to be able to focus on everything and get everything done, which seems a bit of a paradox when last semester I was able to fit so much into such little time. So I guess reflecting on how crucial time management actually is and how focusing just on one thing at a time will actually allow me to make the most of the small things that I do actually have to achieve.
That's crazy. You know, I think I find that when I have free time, I end up wasting time. When I don't have free time, I'm way more structured, and I think it's probably a human psyche. It's so crazy how that happens, and I'm really glad you spoke about that, because that just dovetails into what I've learned over the last few weeks. And getting sick, one of the big things that I realized is the importance of rest, and I think we've spoken about this many times. But it's only when you can't do the things that you can do normally, you realize actually rest is actually important. And, you know, as I said before, when we have lots to do, we try and do everything and get things done, but then we forget about the rest. So, you know, the rest is important, and I realized that. And yeah, but enough of the two of us talking, because we could talk about random stuff all day, but we're not here for that there. As always, tell listeners out there, we try to bring you some amazing people, and every one of our speakers so far has been really fantastic. And today we're going to do the same thing. And I'd like to introduce a person that I first saw our guest's story online, and then I saw it in a Stuff article, then I saw it at the Inspiring Futures Festival, which just happened last week in Wellington. And I was like, man, what an awesome story, what an awesome human being. And we're very honored and privileged to have Ali Muhammad on our podcast today. Ali, welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Rajesh, and thanks, Tane. Thanks for having me.
It's our
Great
pleasure.
to be here.
Fantastic. So, Ali, do you want to just, before we get into our story, do you want to tell our listeners what are you doing at the moment?
So at the moment, I'm studying my Master of Management here at the University of North. Regarding at the moment, I'm also on the board of executives at Messi University Students Association, the education portfolio I've got, as well as I'm also on the board of directors at Manawatu Multicultural Council, and just at the moment, I'm a football referee, a cricket umpire in the summer as well, and I love running and training. It's one of my weekends, and I just like to be active and like to be on people. So
Awesome. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, you're such an awesome representative at Massey University, plus in the Manawatu there, which is fantastic. And like you said, you do all these other crazy cool things. And I'm going to emphasize cool over crazy, which is pretty cool. For our listeners out there, technology is not our friend. So you're just going to see Tanya and my faces if you're watching on YouTube, but if you're on Spotify, it doesn't actually matter. So Ali, we just started saying that you were born and raised in Pakistan.
Yeah. So I was born in Pakistan in a very small city called on the eastern side, very close to the Afghan border, in a place called Quetta, in a city called Quetta. So my family originally comes from Afghanistan. They had to take refuge from Afghanistan into Pakistan in the first term of the Taliban takeover in the early 1990s that happened. Especially me being from Hazara ethnicity, we have
Yes.
been part of a lot of ethnic genocide in Afghanistan, being one of the ethnic minorities. So the parents of my parents and their respective family had decided to move out of Afghanistan for the safety. So they moved to Pakistan, and yeah, in the 2000, I was born in Pakistan. Yeah.
Oh wow! I mean, that would have been such a interesting life story for your grandparents and your parents to live in that time. Then I guess they would have shared the story with you as you were growing up. And so, growing up in Pakistan, how long were you living in that particular province for in that state there before you moved to New Zealand?
So yeah, I was born in Quetta and lived the first 15 years of my life in Pakistan, and then when I was 15, I moved to New Zealand about 7 years ago from now.
Awesome, cool. And do you want to tell our listeners, myself and Tanya, about life in Pakistan? What is that like for you? Because and you can do a great comparison of what it's like.
Yeah, sure. So when I was in Pakistan, I was born quite in a lot of probably deep poverty. Yeah, we didn't have much, to be honest, from what I could remember. I think my earliest memories were like half of the room that we had rented was not covered in the coldest of winter. So when I reflect back on my childhood, I think the only thing is like lack of resources. That only thing
Yeah.
comes to my mind. But yeah, and then yeah, so and yeah, but yeah, life was got better as I grew up. There was kind of part of things. There was saying in the festival that if you live in a among people that has got the same kind of status as you, it doesn't feel make you feel like they're it.
Exactly.
When I was probably a child, like there's a story around my cricket and the passion of sports that has grown up into me. When I was about 2 or 3 years old, I won a cricket bat through a lottery scheme,
Oh wow.
and as soon as I picked up the cricket bat, I absolutely fell in love with the sport. I still remember like being a child, and as soon as school being finished, me being in the streets of Pakistan playing cricket all day. So that's been kind of my journey, like my kind of sweet memories that I could remember is just playing and smashing cricket balls in my childhood. So that is very sweet kind of memories of my childhood that I has had. So yeah, in Pakistan, I used to go to school, and yeah, life was better until I got about the age of 10. When we were living in Pakistan, my father couldn't work in Pakistan, so he had to go to Afghanistan because he was not a Pakistan
Oh
citizen.
wow.
So he had to go to Afghanistan, his home country, to work. When I was 10 years old, he just disappeared one day out of the blues. He just, yeah, we lost contact with him. And yeah, we just found him last year, August, when the Taliban took over the country. Apparently, he was in a prison somewhere
Oh no.
in that part of the world. So yeah, I'm the eldest sibling of my family. All the responsibilities came on me. Yeah, so life got tougher for the next 5 years. As a 10-year-old, I've got this responsibility of the family. So yeah, I was going to school, and then I used to go to work in the evenings, all evenings, and I did like a number of works from constructions to working in a shampoo factory to working in a wide variety of places. So yeah, life got quite tough when I was after 10 years old, but I still had the kind of the privilege of having good education in Pakistan, but still being one of the ethnic minorities. Life was very, very tough. There was no jobs, there was no directions in the regard. So the year that I came to New Zealand, actually, I was asked that I would not be able to continue my education because so in Pakistan when you get to year 9, everything becomes centralized. So the
Yes.
central governments do all of the exams and everything towards the year, and I was told that I can't get further education because I'm not a citizen of Pakistan. So that was quite tough. The same year, luckily, I'm not sure what I would able to do because course, life would have. This the same year that I came to New Zealand, so there was, yeah, life in Pakistan as a refugee, as an Afghan refugee, it's good. Definitely, it's got a lot of challenges that comes with it. But yeah, there's been a lot of safety issues that comes to, like, I've lost three of my good friends to war in Pakistan. All of them are being quite young. So yeah, so there's got a mixed kind of reactions of my upbringing in Pakistan. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. There's so much to unpack in there. Living in New Zealand now, I guess Tane more specifically. This is a world that that's a whole foreign concept to you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've had a few friends that have been through similar situations. Obviously, not to that extent because everybody's context is different. But yeah, it is always quite profound to actually hear these things and learn these things. And I think, especially for me, not having been overseas yet, it is quite eye-opening to hear these kinds of things.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Ali. I just want to step back a couple of things there. So I think one of the things that made me smile was the cricket bat. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing. And Pakistan and India and now Afghanistan, cricket is really blowing up there. And how does it make you feel now when you see the Afghanistan team or the Pakistan team? I don't know. So where does your loyalties lie? This will be pretty hard for you, I guess. Or born in Afghanistan or have Afghanistan heritage, lived in Pakistan, born in Pakistan, and now live in New Zealand. That would be a pretty interesting dilemma for you.
It is, and it's across the different things, and at times you fell into like a sense of like the question of belonging. Where do you belong at times? So yeah, I should be belonging, whether I belong in the land of my father and grandparents, but I've never been there.
That's
or
right,
the
yeah.
land that I was born and grew up, but it doesn't give me the rights of citizenship, and my experiences hasn't been great. Or do I call New Zealand home, that I've been living here and he's given me all of the privileges, but neither I was born here, or neither my parents or my grandparents were born here. So this the dilemmas that many refugee young people that kind of experience. There was one young guy that I was chatting with. I think he was about 16, 17. In his short 16 or 17 years of his life, he had been in 5 different countries as a refugee, with the take refugees. So that's kind of the dilemma that a lot of refugee people do encounter on a lot of basis. But in terms of cricket, I actually don't know. Like, it depends who is playing. So if Pakistan and India is playing, I would like to go to Pakistan. And if depends who are we playing. If Pakistan and New Zealand playing, like they came here a couple of years ago, and I was in FA, I was like, I'm a Kiwi now. I'm going to support the New Zealand team with all of my mates. And then as soon as I go to the ground and halfway through the game, I changed for some reason. My heart just at times there's kind of the dilemma that you kind of encounter at times, but it depends the context and who are we playing at times. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard, but at the end of the day, it's just great that sport can bring these things together, for different reasons. And then at the age of 10, we don't have to go into this too deeply, but when your father disappeared, I mean, you said you're the oldest of your siblings. How many siblings do you have?
So I've got 2 younger brother and a younger sister, and there's 4 of us. Yeah.
Okay, 4 of you, and then dad, your father disappeared. That would have been how long did you have to wait, I guess, before you realized, okay, something was not okay? Was it just one day, or was it a couple of days, or?
Yeah. So my mother used to communicate with him every day almost. So like we didn't heard him for one day. I thought he might be busy. Second day, third day, we got really worried that something might have happened. There's Afghanistan, it's quite an unsafe country. A lot of stuff happens, and then 1 week later, one of my uncles, who's now living with us here in New Zealand, he used to work in another city called Kabul, the capital.
Yes.
Though my father used to work in Herat, so we asked him to come over, go to Herat and look for him, and he went to Herat. He went to Herat and searched for him 2 weeks. We called all of the people that he used to work in. Nobody had any
Oh wow.
clue like where he was. We tried for almost a month, and then it became 2 months, became 6 months, became a year. We tried everything, called everyone in Afghanistan that we knew that could help us. We were quite young. I was 10, so I couldn't go to Afghanistan with it being so unsafe. So it was, and my mother couldn't because there was 4 of us being very young, and she couldn't travel to Afghanistan to find my father. So so we tried for almost a year to 2, and then we just left it to the fact that something might have happened to him, and probably he's not anymore among us in the world. So so that was very hard to kind of take in.
And then you found him last year. I mean, that would have been such an amazing feeling for you. Or bittersweet, I guess.
So my mother was watching of this. My mother was watching a video clip from Kabul, Afghanistan, and then he found my father giving an interview to one of the local medias.
Oh wow!
And then she recognized him, and then so this kind of the stories I could write a book on this. So we managed to find him through that, and then we contacted the New Zealand Red Cross, the Palmy office, in regards to if we could really find him where he is in Afghanistan. They were very helpful in that. We found him in regards to his location. We managed to get his contact details in Afghanistan, and then we contacted him. It was quite great. To have that connection back. A massive part of my childhood. Without having a parent.
That's really, really special, and thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, that you can't really put that into words what that must feel like. And but now you were at 10 years old, you were the I guess the main man in the house, and I guess like you said before, it's the world that you were living in at that time. And how did that feel for you? Like basically in 2 days, in a short space of time, your childhood changed dramatically.
So we just had a lot of fun. So as you might be aware, in that part of the world, a lot of people don't have a lot of financial stability.
Yes.
Just people live on their day and nights, for example. So for example, my father used to send us income of every month, and it stopped overnight. So we didn't have any income. My mother starts working in people's homes. I had to work 3 or 4 different places while also getting education. Life became very tough. I couldn't focus on my education while I was working in 3 different places. Couldn't continue doing what was my passion, playing cricket. Overnight it became very, very tough. But it kind of also took away my childhood at times when I think, and a lot of people ask me, like, I say, like, I'm like, how old are you? I'm saying like 20, 21, 22, and people are like, you look so mature, you of your age. And that's kind of the 5 years of my life taught me a lot of stuff that I probably had gained like 20 years of experience within 5 years. So though life was tough, but it definitely gave me an opportunity to learn a lot of stuff within a very short space of time.
Yeah, and I like you mentioned that because there's a quote that I always like to mention when people talk about age. You know, someone says, "Oh, when you get older, you get wiser." I disagree with that. I think your experiences make you wiser. You know, your age doesn't make you wiser. You know, you could be old and living in the same place and have no experiences. That doesn't make you wiser. But like you said, like yourself, basically your whole life, it's been an experience, and you've just become wiser and wiser in different contexts. So that's a great way that you put that there. And so I guess, Ali, so you're now the man of the house. I guess you're living this life because you have to do it. It's not about can I or should I. It's you have to do it because you have to help your family survive day to day. Tell me so at the age of 15, when did the process of you looking to come to New Zealand happen, and why New Zealand of all places in the world, I guess?
It didn't start when I was 15, actually. So it started about when I was, I think, 2013. So
Yeah.
so we went to UNCHR to put an application through to get us out of kind of deep poverty and struggles, to be honest, and help us get into resettlers in a better countries. You know? So when my mother put an application in early, I think 2013, to the UN office in Quetta, Pakistan, and then it kind of the journey started, and we used to go and give interviews to the UN office for about almost once every month for
Oh,
3 years. When you're a refugee, you're never given an option of where do you want to move.
yeah, totally.
So it's always you're told that you're moving to this country.
Yeah.
So you're either moving, like, so there are not a lot of countries. So you're either going to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, or the US. So there are the 4 countries that accept refugees, or back in the days. So we were luckily selected into New Zealand, and then and we were given acceptance of residence of New Zealand, I think in early 2015, and then it about October, we were told that we are going to New Zealand. The story about that is quite funny as well. They told us 5 days before we were coming to New Zealand that we are going to New Zealand, just 5 days. And 2 of them are big public holidays in Pakistan where everything is closed. So so they rang us and saying like, hey, I think the date was the 22nd of September. It's like, hey, your flight is on the 29th of September. You must get to Islamabad by the 26th of September. This is all of your flight details. And you are going to New Zealand within a week. And there was quite an experience in itself as well.
I mean, how surreal is that? And September the 21st, you're like living your life normally as you do, and then on September the 22nd, your life has changed again, just dramatically.
That's correct. Yeah, I still remember that. I didn't knew what to feel, because at one hand, I knew that life was going to get better, but on the other hand, like life was getting so changed. Like I couldn't meet all of my friends that I had, and I'm living all of this world that has become so normal for me for the past 5 years of my life, and life has just started to settle for the past 5 years, but again, another big move, another heading to another different part of the world that I don't know much. The only few things that I know that it has a cricket team called the Black Caps. It's got a capital city called Wellington, and I know that there are 2 other cities like Christchurch and Wellington. That's all probably I know, and that's the thing that I knew that the firm in New Zealand is quite famous. So there's all of my kind of knowledge of New Zealand back in the day, and I didn't knew what the people going to look like, whether people is going to accept us as refugees, how the education system like, whether I'll be able to play sports, play cricket. I knew that the cricket was available up here, but other sports and how people's going to be like. So it was a lot of questions on my mind. Though I knew that I would have access to education and work and all of those other sort of areas that I didn't necessarily had access in Pakistan. But at the same time, it was probably, I was kind of, sad that I'm having to say goodbye to the life that I've had the past 15 years within just one day.
Yeah, I mean, nothing can prepare you for it, right? You like I said, the last 15 years, you've lived your life, and the last 5 years, your life was different. And essentially, it's like moving to another planet. You have one day to move to another planet because, like you said, you know nothing about it. All that you know is cricket, the Blackburn, Wellington, maybe, and then you just move. So did you know which city you're moving to? Did they tell you where you're moving to?
Not until I go to New Zealand. So I think when you come to New Zealand, every person that comes through the refugee quota must stay at the refugee the refugee reception center in Mangere, Auckland. So you must stay there for 6 weeks, where they will take you through all of orientations and everything. I think it was our week 2 or week 3 of us, and we were told that they have got us a house in Palmerston North, and back in the day, I'd never heard the name. I couldn't even pronounce the word Palmerston North properly. So then we were told that we are heading into this city. There was kind of only two questions that are like, just is there any schools, and is there any cricket opportunities in Palmerston North? That's the only two questions that I asked my case manager at the Refugee Mongoose Center, and they said, yeah, both of them, you will have plenty of opportunities to, and yeah, my life was bright. And you know, so when I still reflect on those, yes, I think there was, and still the person that I met again, I think she saw a kind of a bright in my eyes as soon as she said yes, and there was a brightness in my eyes, and there was a smile on her face that she still can't remember. She still cannot forget to this day. So yeah, that was enough for me, to be honest. Yeah.
So beautiful, you know. I mean, when the chips are down, just the two things: education and sport. You know, that's all that you're worried about. That brought me to another question. Your English. Did you learn in English in Pakistan, or was it Urdu or Hindi? And did you pick? What did you learn English?
So I can speak in a series of languages. So
Yes,
my mother tongue, my mother tongue is Dari. So it's very close to Farsi, so I can understand and speak Farsi as well. And then and grew up in Pakistan, going to school in Pakistan. Urdu was the main language, so I learned Urdu on the way as well. And Urdu and Hindi is quite similar. We watch a lot of like Bollywood and this is Indian movies, so I can understand Hindi quite well as well. And then the story with English was Pakistan is, as you know, is an English colonized country, so it's not a way of communication, though it's a way of your social state at the time. So everyone in Pakistan loves to and learn to want to speak English. So I used to learn English in school, and then there was other English language centers that I think I started going when I was 9, and then I've never stopped until I was, I think, 14 maybe, and that's where I learned the language of English. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And it's so crazy when you can speak lots of languages, or your brain just works in such different ways in the different languages. Can I ask you a question? When you landed in New Zealand, what did you and your family feel? So you land, obviously a big flight, you land at Auckland Airport. What did you feel?
I think from what I could remember was a sense of kind of safety, that we are going to be safe. Because in Pakistan, like you cannot say like if you're going to work today, you will come back safe home alone. So there was kind of sense of safety, like everything being so peaceful. There was kind of the first thing that of my instant reaction to things were like, how peaceful is this country, where you don't see police with arms, with guns alongside the streets. So there was really like first memories, and also how clean New Zealand is. So like the sense of cleanliness. I still remember when I was got out of the plane and I was getting through the terminal and looking around myself, and also the cleanliness, and also the how humble and how nice the people are. And like I've experienced like the immigration system in Pakistan and how tough it is over there, and how amazing and nice our immigration crew is here in New Zealand. The people are just lovely, so that was kind of my first instant reaction of getting into New Zealand. Yeah.
Oh wow, great. So, and I mean, it's so crazy when you come from a place where seeing guns and seeing police that are armed and people that treat you differently to a place where it's totally different. So now you moved to Palmerston North. What school did you? I mean, how was the schooling transition for you?
School was tough. So school was really tough, to be honest. So I come from a culture where we treat our teachers as our second parents. But in New Zealand, I couldn't find that. There was not that element of respect for our teachers here at school, and I really struggled with that. And then also the sense of fitting in. I started really feeling whether I could fit into the culture, and I couldn't fit well into the culture of school life here in New Zealand, which led me to a lot of mental health issues. You won't experience this, but when I came to New Zealand, I was about 59 kgs, and within a year's time, I went from 59 to 106 kgs.
Oh wow.
In terms of weight. So there, I had a lot of struggles. I used to, like somebody introduced me to the world of fast food that I've never heard of, and then just became crazy. I 3 times a meal. I used to drink like 2 liters of V every night and didn't sleep until 4 a.m. in the morning. Impacted big time my education here, and yeah, so I used to really struggle in my first 2 years of being here in New Zealand. Just the sense of like whether I just couldn't fit in part of the culture here. I tried my best. The schooling system was not good enough to cater into my needs. We were classed as different. Like we had a international, like we had a department it's only for refugee people, and people who were not of the department looked at us quite badly, to be honest, at times. That was kind of my first reaction. And I felt like I'm lesser than others, to be honest. And that sense still kills me, to be honest. Like, though to be honest, I was doing good in terms of academic when I came out. I was good in maths, I was good in science. But I was good in English, and they treat us differently. They treat us lesser, and I'm kind of person that likes to excel in everything. Whenever I put my hand into anything, I kind of excel. And then they put us in a different basket, and still to this day, I really struggle with that. So into my schooling life here was tough. So I did my year 11 NCA level 1 and NCA level 2, and I just left school, and when I was doing my year 12, I went. I'm not sure whether it also happens across the country or not. There's youth skills program that you can go to a polytech for 1 day a week, and so I went to UCall as part of the schooling program, and then I still loved it, like the sense of independence. More respect for your lecturers, for your teachers, and then in the sense of I'm a big fan of independence learning, and you just give me the task and tell me like you must do it by this day and this day. I will ensure I will submit this a week in advance to you, and that kind of environment I kind of excel well into. So and then as soon as I did that, and then I said I'm not going to do my NCA level 3 at school. I left school, did my level 3 and level 4 courses at UCall. And then pursued my degree, and now I'm doing my master's. So yeah.
Oh, what a crazy journey there. I mean, there's so much there to talk about there. I mean, it's so crazy because you leave this lifestyle that you know in Pakistan, and then you come to a new country, and straight away the challenges are not trying to fit in, because it's not about fitting. It's about being treated differently, and it's quite sad because humans, all of us do this, we like the idea of inviting different people into our world, but when they actually come in, we go, oh, we start to people differently, like they're not the same. And one thing I'd like to share with you is I work with lots of refugee students across the country, and one thing they always tell me is when we go to schools, they treat us like we're dumb because we don't understand the language. I have one person who like you, he's super smart in sciences, but he was put into a lower class because they said to him, you don't understand English, so therefore you should be in a lower class. And I think that's not fair, because it's not your fault that English is not your strong language, but the sciences shouldn't, I mean, you're an academic, you're a smart person, that shouldn't dictate how you go. So I'm sorry that you've experienced that, and I'm sorry that lots of people still experience it, and hopefully that changes as we invite and accept more people of diversity into New Zealand. But what I also wanted to ask you about is, when you came from Pakistan to New Zealand, did you go from a single gender school to a co-gender school, or did you go from single sex to single sex?
From single sex to co-gender school, yes. There was a massive shift as well. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, because I can understand, because that's a big difference as well, I'm from Zimbabwe, and the one thing I like to reflect with you is when I was growing up in Zimbabwe, also teachers were treated with lots of respect. They were, like you said, like your parents over here, then teachers are basically the same line essentially, or just a line below. But when I came to New Zealand, I found it was very different, that teachers are not treated the same. So I empathize with that. So, but that's awesome that you decided to go to UCall. What did you do? So you did UCall for 2 years, and then you decided to go to university. What did you study?
Yeah, so actually I did 4 years at UCL. So I did my year one was just level 3 and level 4, and then I did my 3 years of a degree at UCL. So
Oh, wow.
my undergraduate I studied exercise and wellness,
Awesome.
applied science, but also my major was in sport and recreation management.
Yes.
And then and now I'm doing my master's in management in organization management. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Now I'm gonna shift focus now because one of the reasons why I really love your story, apart from all this other cool stuff here, is you came here and you realized that there was a bit of a gap for young people getting involved in sports. Do you want to talk about that? You know, what you got involved in, how you got involved in that?
Yeah. As always that I reflect on, there are a lot of inequalities within our refugee communities, like the sense of capitalism, and a lot of our young people really miss on that. And from what I reflect on, when they miss out on a lot of stuff when they are younger, that affects them when as they go. If they are missing out a lot of stuff in primary school, they will start missing out a lot in secondary schools and the university life and career life. I've seen that pattern a lot within a lot of refugee people. So yeah, when I reflect back, when I was last year, when I would look myself around, I was the only refugee young person that was playing sports. And yeah, I was doing well, but when I tried to engage with other young people and ask them to come and play sports, nobody was. To be honest, and I couldn't really find why my fellow peers don't want to play sports alongside me. So for my background. So and I deep down looked at quite a lot of stuff, and I found out there was a lot of barriers, a lot of issues that's stopping a lot of refugee young people to playing sports and taking part in other social opportunities. So and I did small kind of research, and I really came out and really find out that essentially like the likes of financial constraints and transport and language, as well as the fear adjustment, is really stopping people, a lot of our young people playing and taking on different opportunities. And so I decided to kind of change that kind of perspective and bring a kind of a small project of around 30 young people, bring them together, have them enjoy them, and just all from refugee background, give them an opportunity to try out different sports. And then that was kind of my idea and thinking was around, and grew up to something really big and something that I didn't expect. It we almost had 45 different young people that we connected with throughout the 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And Sport Manawatu stepped up, and they provided us with all the equipment, and they provided us with funding so we could help young people have transport. That we can provide them with a meal when they finish off their training sessions, and then it was really good. And it was also a great sense of community. Everyone was chipping in and trying to play their part. For example, the Manawatu Standard said like we're going to do like a media report to have more young people out there to connect them and let them know this project exists, so we can invite more young people to come along. You called their part, and Sport Manawatu did the part. Council stepped up in that, so that was really cool. The all of our communities coming together and supporting one project. And so it was really lovely. But yeah, so that was kind of my idea, and now it's great that almost 70% of young people that came along to the project now playing some sort of sports for their schools, etc. And the other thing was a lot of young people knew there was sports available in New Zealand, but they didn't know how to access them. They didn't
Yeah.
knew there was sports coordinators available at schools. They didn't knew that how to contact clubs. So there was a lot of barriers, and like they were stopping these young people. So I engaged them with the sports coordinators at school and find out like how they can find out solve the financial constraints through the AP system, which they didn't knew, and other issues in transport, and how we could use best the public transporters out there and to get these young people to and from their games when they are playing sports, etc. So that was kind of some of my work that I was able to do last year. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So and so for you, what is the moment for you realize actually this is not okay? So before you started this, when did you realize, wait a minute, this is not okay, I need to find out what's going on?
Um, yeah, I think it was probably March of 2021 actually. and to be honest, because my family is quite big into sports. All of my siblings play sports, and when I looked around, and especially I looked at some of the young people and that came to New Zealand were fun and healthy. And now they're obese. These young people that you can see have become so big over here. So that was kind of like an instant, like why a lot of people are suffering from different health issues. So there was kind of and then I did did a small research in our Afghan community that who's playing sports, and it came out that not a lot of people do. So there was kind of realization that like what's wrong, like why a lot of our young people are not playing sports. So there was probably around March, April of 2021. Yeah.
Oh wow. So that's great awareness, because if I like that, there's another saying that I have, it's awareness precedes change. So the fact that you saw this awareness and you saw it was needed, that's pretty awesome. And then was there any barriers for you? You spoke about barriers for your colleagues and your peers. Were there any barriers for you to set this up?
Massive barrier. The first problem, the first major barrier was how to contact with these young people. So most of the young people literally lived in a lot of isolation. So how I could get the word out. So that was a massive challenge. So I think like to be honest, like the way you do marketing for other communities is not gonna work for refugee communities. It's not just good enough to put a poster up on the social media and expect people to turn up. It's not never going to work out like that way. So I teamed up with a team at Red Cross, so the Palmerston Red Cross office, and they were fantastic. So I got all the contacts for young people. We went all knocked in people's doors and asked whether we could have a small corridor with them, and we asked them to fill a form and give them information. So there was a massive barrier that in terms of just making the young people aware of the program. And the other ones was probably financial side of things and how to. But there was not a big one. I always knew that if I had to start something, people would turn up. We've got a lot of generous businesses, and there was a lot of fund providers. They are there in our city, in our country. So there was never an issue. I knew that I would find my way out of that way. And also the third part was COVID. And also with a lot of inconsistencies with COVID coming in, and then we are going in orange and green, or back then it was probably level 3 and 2 and 1. So actually the first week that I was supposed to start, we went into level 3. So I couldn't really do anything. And then we tried Zoom. So we tried having once a week engagement with these young people and trying to say like how these young people are feeling. And we did small emotional sort of sessions in regards to kind of support these young people get through some of the tough time that's currently happening. So, and then 2 weeks later, we were able to have the project in person going on. Yeah, going.
Oh wow, crazy! I always ask about barriers because when we do any project in life, it's never easy. And especially a project that means something, it's never easy, and it's always easy to give up and go, this is way too hard. But obviously, that's not your attitude. So that's pretty awesome that you did that. And what sports do you cover when you do this program? Is it all sports, or do they get to choose their sports? How does it work?
So it was multi-sports. The multi-sports games where you just throw a ball up in the air and there's 2 teams playing. So I think we tried about 10 to 12 different sports. So we went from cricket to hockey to basketball to netball and to a wide variety of sports that we tried. So it was about 10 to 12 different sports throughout the 8 weeks. And we also did recreation sessions like orienteering, and we went for a hike. So we did tried different stuff. Yeah.
Awesome, very cool. And has the uptake increased now? It's been almost a year, actually more than a year now. Do you see it growing?
Yeah. As there was kind of a pilot program that stopped. There was an 8 weeks pilot program. And yeah, still I could see people like asking me whether I could return, and I've got a lot of ideas in regards to like rolling out few new things, and I'm definitely gonna roll a few new things. I think it's probably the first place that I'm gonna announce that I've created a small organization that will support young people in Manawatu. So there's something that I've got a lot of sports, and also sports and arts and different ways I could support our young people. And yeah, and that is something I've got a lot of ideas coming up in the next few months to come. Yeah.
Awesome. Did you find that once you started this program that your peers now started to get involved in the mainstream stuff as well, or did they still stick within the refugee community?
As I said, like almost like 70% of the 45% that we had now playing sports out there in the community, which is
Brilliant.
awesome. So they're playing for the schools, for the clubs, which is excellent in my perspective. Yeah, and just giving them opportunity to integrate with the wider community, and get them out of the zone of technology and being a lot in isolation. So that is now I'm feel quite pleased about that, reflecting back on then and the progress that we have been able to make now. Yeah.
That's awesome. And we're going to go back to reflection. So I'm reflecting because you mentioned something earlier on there that within a year you basically doubled your weight essentially. And when did you realize this was a problem? When did you go, this is not okay for me? Because I mean, you obviously look young and you look so healthy now. What did you do to shift that for yourself?
I might share a story that might have you laughing.
Yeah, go on, share
So,
a story.
So in 2017, somebody told me to become a referee in football. So, and you will get some pocket money and some opportunity to get some exercise in. So I went to my first training session, and there were some of my people that are now my mentors, likes of Matthew Conger and Mark Hull, who are FIFA World Cup referees, has been to World Cups, has been to Commonwealth, and yeah, and I remember like they were going for a warm up, like a couple of rounds of the ground, and I did that as a warm up, and I couldn't move my body. I was out of breath. To be honest, and I just went into the changing room shed and just kind of laid down, and then while they were training for the whole hour, and I just couldn't move my body. I was short of breath, and that was the kind of the warm up for them. So there was kind of quite a reflection, and there was like who the person I've become now in comparison who the person I was when I came to New Zealand, and I've become lazy, I had become unmotivated, I've become so much, and there was kind of like slap in the face sort of movement to where I felt like it's not good. I need to change myself, and there was kind of the hard movement, and I feel I'm quite pleased about that movement, to be honest, because I was quite happy to go down onto the journey of being a unconfident, lazy, unmotivated young person. Didn't care about how life was. Yeah, so that was kind of a very, very, I think, tough moment, but also in reflection now, probably one of the most beautiful moments, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Those humbling moments are the moments where either one of two things happens. Either you go, oh, cool, this is my life, or you go, oh, I need to change my life. That's the way I look at it. All of us come to a place in our lives where we get humbled. When you fail a test, or when someone says no to you, or in your case, you couldn't finish the warm up, and then you decided actually I need to change this. So that's really awesome. And how did you change? What did you do? Did you just start? Because it's not easy, right? It's not an easy. You just wake up the next day and you become fit all of a sudden. What is your journey there?
So as I said, my mentors, like Matthew Conger and Mark Hull, like really supporting me throughout the journey in terms of providing like all sort of support. I still remember like they were doing light training just to support me, just to ensure that I feel I'm doing a lot during their training session. So reflecting back in regards to how inclusive they were in the way we were trained together, and if I would have missed a session, they would have texted me, "Hey Ali, where are you? You didn't came to the training today." So that kind of support really kind of like, and I felt like I am letting people down if I didn't went to trainings. And then I started refereeing football on the weekends, and so yeah, and I was really enjoying it. By the end of my first season that I refereed football, and I looked at around my peers, and a lot of people have got very cool opportunities with refereeing football. People are refereeing a national league stage, and people are going out of city, out of country to referee football, and I felt that was really, really cool. And I decided I'm going to be like one day like hopefully refereeing the national league, and so that was kind of my motivation. I started like training like 5-7 days a week. I used to train by myself, and just like I had the vision of like myself kind of refereeing in a national league game, and and there was kind of my whole kind of movements that I was kind of thinking throughout. And then so I started training quite hard. My training was at one point quite intense, that I had shin splints, which
Oh
I
wow.
was out of training for 4 months almost. Yeah, so I was really really pushed. I was really really at times I was like kind of running right in like almost like 10 o'clock at night. People would think like I'm crazy, to be honest, and I was just like doing like trainings by myself at times. But early mornings I used to do like all like stairs and everything, and I could find any reason that I could be active, that I tried. So that was kind of changing moments. And then I still remember like so we have a fitness test and you had to do like 40 repetitions. I still remember like when I had my first attempt, I could do only one, and I still could remember like almost 2 years ago that I could like do everything like quite easily, like 40 of them without no problems. And so there was quite a kind of relieving moment. And yeah, last year when I made my debut in our National Women's League competition, there was quite a pleasing moment, like in regards to us when we were going out for respect program. After reflecting on my journey and the hard work that I put in there, I felt like I'm gonna burst into tears almost when I was refereeing. Like there was when the game was about to start, but there was a lot of things going into my mind. But yeah, that was kind of the journey. The journey was definitely not easy to end by any means, but one thing that I had very good people around me, and the people that pushed me, that inspired me, that motivated me, that I still do to this day, to be honest. In that regard, I've been quite lucky, to be honest.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm not surprised by this because your whole story has shown that you have drive to do the best for yourself, but also for other people. So the fact that you've done this is amazing, but it's also not a surprise, if that makes sense. And I can imagine that the moment you were like, hey, this is your debut, it would have been such a, because it's not just the fact that you're a referee, it's the fact that you're in a new country and everything just changed for you. So how amazing. But also, we spoke about how school was pretty tough to try and fit in. But then if we reverse that and go, actually, wait a minute, the community was amazing and supportive, So I mean, young people are terrible sometimes, in schools, people are silly. But the community was backing you and you had amazing support, which is the only way we grow, when you have that support, which is fantastic. So you're doing all this there, and then now you've also decided to do a master's program, and we know master's is not very easy. What inspired you to do? What is your drive to do a master's?
To be honest, when I was at school here in New Zealand, and I kind of laughed with one of my teacher aides that one day I'm going to do my PhD and I would have the like doctor beside my name, and she laughed and she told me that I would never be able to go to university.
Oh wow.
I'm never good enough to go to university. So that was kind of very tough moment, and I like to take in, and I felt like, oh, again, just refugee people can't go to university in New Zealand. So there was an instant question that came to my mind, like, would I be able to go to like university after I finish school, and what happens after that? And so that was still kind of sticks with me still to this day, that I could remember. That was kind of in my drive. And last year when I finished my undergrad, I know, I'm saying that I have no intention to my PhD and put myself into education, but no, I felt like when I did my undergrad, and I felt like management was something that I was really passionate about, learning more about leadership and how to work in organizations, and those are areas really fascinated with my undergraduate. And then I looked at master's program available here at Mass University, and with just 1 year's program, I said, yeah, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to have 1 more year of education, and then hopefully I'll be working in 2023. So that is kind of what kind of inspired me to start my master's program. Yeah.
Awesome. And hey, who knows? You might have Dr. Ali Muhammad. Who knows? It might happen. You have no idea. It might happen, right? So that's how crazy. Ali, is really funny. And a lot of our guests that have been on this podcast have said a similar thing, that somebody at school either said to them that, no, you're not going to go to university, or someone has said, hey, you should go to university. And it's so crazy how that's such a pivotal moment for people. What language matters and people say is really quite crazy. So I'm glad that you didn't take that to heart, and you're actually smashing so many goals in life at the moment, which is really cool. I guess we've been talking for almost over an hour now, and I don't want to keep you, but your story is so fascinating. So I guess and what has it been like for your family? You know, so we've spoken about you. What has it been like for your family to transition into living in a whole new world, essentially? For your mom,
It's kind of different.
for your mom specifically, I guess, because you know, for young people it's a little bit easier, but for older people might be a bit harder.
Yeah, like for all of us, it's different journey. Like my youngest sibling, when he came to New Zealand, he was 7. So his journey has been quite, I would say the word smooth, but it's different.
Yeah.
And for what myself, which was different for me, and probably the same for two of my other younger siblings, and also it was probably tougher for my mother. So going off from community where she's good at language, she understands the culture well, she can practice her religion quite freely, and then from all of this to going to a different country where she can't understand a single thing, where she doesn't have any knowledge of the culture or the people, or the people's how the people is going to react to us. So I assume it might be probably hardest for her. And going to a country where one, you don't have any of the language, but also at the same time you don't have anyone that you know. You are completely going into a country that you even don't have a single relative into. So I can assume, yeah, and I think our first 6 months was quite tough. We didn't knew anyone, so we just stayed at home. Yeah, and there was once in a while that we had someone from our Afghan community just would come and say hi for half an hour and have tea, and then we'll go back. And yeah, so I think first 6 months, 12 months, it was definitely tough until we managed to find networks, managed to find people and understand the system, because the system in New Zealand can be very hard and can be very rough at times as well in regards to everything that how does the IRD and MSD and everything works, and those are going from one agency to the other agency, and so for her I assume was pretty hard in terms of understanding how the bank system works. For example, to be honest, like before coming to New Zealand, we never knew how does an ATM works.
Exactly.
There was 3 times, for example, like 3 times we put our like kind of our bank card into the ATM machine and never came back because I think we pressed the wrong button or something. And there was like we got a lot of stories like that. This is quite funny. So, but yeah, just like settling into a system where it's so foreign to us. We come quite from, for example, from a cash society where we deal everything in cash, to coming to New Zealand where everything is not cash, to be honest, like everything predominantly in EFTPOS and on online systems where, yeah, and not having understand. For example, I'd never used a lot of internet in Pakistan, and when we come into New Zealand, everything's become technology, become everything digital. So just settling in from her as well. Like she went to this English language classes, and she had to learn English, which was immensely tough. Like English language is hard for young people to learn, but it's also extremely hard for older generations to learn. And yeah, and now she is working as a cleaner in a school here in Palmy, but she's quite fine. And she's got enough language that she can go to supermarkets, and yeah, I'm quite proud of her actually that she decided to work this year, and because she wants to give back to the community that has given her, though she don't have to because of her language and cultural competency, but she has stepped up and said like, now I'm going to work. I went to school 6 years in New Zealand, and I'm going to go work this year. So yeah, which is pretty cool as well. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, it's so awesome that your mom has done that, because like you said, you know, the younger you are, the easier things. I mean, when I say easier, it's inverted commas, but you know, it's a bit smoother, as you said before. When as you get older, it's, you know, learning becomes hard. Changing the way you've lived your life becomes much hard. You know, I empathize with you when it comes to banks. Like I said, I came from Zimbabwe, and it's a cash-based society, and I still remember when I was given my EFTPOS card, I was like, I don't know what this is. And then I went to a shop and I paid for my first thing, and I was pressing all the wrong buttons, and the lady looked at me like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "I have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing here. This is so foreign to me." it's so crazy how things are so different. Your cultural norms and your societal norms are so different. And like you said right at the start, and I really like this, that you don't know any different in the world that you live in. So when you grew up in Pakistan, that was your world. You didn't know any different. And now when you live in New Zealand, that's your world. It's totally different. So it's pretty crazy. And I think that's a good remembrance. Ali, I mean, I could keep talking to you forever and ever and ever because I think you have a fantastic story. But I think we should probably start to wrap up this podcast. And our podcast is called Bastards of Knowledge, and you've shared some amazing pieces of knowledge today. But the way we like to round off our podcast is basically to ask our guests if there's one piece of knowledge they'd like to share with our listeners. What would that be? If you have one piece of knowledge.
A piece of knowledge I wouldn't say, but it's something that like if any of like refugee people are listening to this, like I usually call New Zealand to be a land of opportunities, and I motivate, I try to send a message to all of our young people from refugee background that New Zealand is now our home, and just like kind of embrace New Zealand, and then. Yeah, and whether it's do your best, whether it's education, whether it's career, and embrace New Zealand fully, because we have no other home or to go backwards. Embrace New Zealand, and kind of and I believe it's not good enough in New Zealand to be able to survive. We as refugee people must thrive, and we need to find different ways to be able to thrive. I just want to kind of throw out to young refugee people, especially young people that are out there listening, and do amazing mahi, whether it's education, work, or arts, or sports, or anything that you're doing. Just give it your best, and kind of inspire the next one to come. Yeah, thank you.
I love it. I mean, that's so great. Now, can I add to that? I think the other thing I want to add to that is don't let the title of refugee limit what you do. And I think, like you said at the start, when people look at you as refugees, you're like, oh, people treat you as, say, second-class citizens, or we're not the same. But I think, as I've seen from yourself and lots of other refugees that I've worked with, that it doesn't matter what your background is. If you have the drive as you do, and if you have the aspiration, you do the mahi, you can create your own life. Don't let your past dictate the way you are.
Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting. Yeah,
No,
the quote that just came to my mind that I usually tell people is like, although being refugee is part of my identity, I've never allowed it to define me.
100%. I think that's a great way to end this. Just because you're a refugee, it's part of your identity, but it doesn't define who you are. That's a fantastic way to end. Ali, thank you so much for sharing your story with me today. I know we could go into so many more avenues and areas, but we might get you back on here another time. But thank you for all the hard work that you're doing in the Manawatu specifically. But hopefully this message goes out to other refugees around the country, because I know there's refugee communities all around New Zealand. I know there's a lot in Wakagala. I was working with some that are from Colombia that are there. There's some Syrians in Dunedin, and so hopefully everyone that's listening to this podcast gets some inspiration. But also, if you're not a refugee, I hope you also get inspired by Ali's story here and what is done and achieved over the last few years. Ali, thank you so much. To our listeners out there, let's thank Ali with a big round of applause. Yay. And as always, we appreciate you listening out there, and we feel free to jump on, share this podcast with whoever you want to, and we'll catch you the next time. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your baskets of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.